I'm going to talk about why meetings suck and why they don't have to. I'm sure all of us have heard from our teammates at the water cooler that we have too many meetings, the meetings are too long, meetings are a waste of time. And so I really want, my mission today is to help all of you correct that where you work. So before I get started, I just want to do a quick survey on your meeting culture. If you can go to menti.com and use the code 227943 and just answer the statement the best you can. So in my workplace, we have effective meetings, and just choose if you strongly disagree, or you disagree, or you agree, or you strongly agree. Now I'll give you guys some time to get in there. Oh, yeah, it's 227943. Hold on, I have to figure out how to project it. I actually have it on my computer, but I don't know why it's not showing here. Can you help me get it to show on the... there, I got, yeah. Well, can I get it to project there?
This one, you must put it the another screen.
Sorry.
Yep.
There.
You must close this one and turn to your presentation.
Okay. So 2 people have 3, 4, 5, 8, 9. Okay. Well, we're almost like half and half here. So maybe it's not so bad as I thought, which is a good thing. I'll give a couple more minutes. Okay. Cool. Okay, keep going. It's starting to look a little bit more realistic now. All right. So you can see that we're suffering this problem of sucky meetings. And I'll give you a little bit of context about where I'm coming from. So at Alpha is a moonshot factory in Barcelona, and we build mobile apps as well. And I work for Alpha Health, and so we're doing health apps for consumers and also for businesses. And every quarter at Alpha, we do this thing called the Pulse Survey, where we basically query the team about how is the work life going. And one of the statements that we ask in the Pulse Survey is this: we hold effective meetings. And in the beginning of this year, when we asked that question, only 24% of the team responded favorably. So only 24% said either they agree that we hold effective meetings or they strongly agree, and the rest obviously didn't. So I made it my personal mission. I actually publicly shared my own personal OKR with the team that I wanted to increase that rating by at least 30%. And so today I'm going to tell you how I tried to do that. But why is this important for me? We spend so much of our lives at work, and we spend probably so much of our work lives in meetings. It's really important that we get the greatest value out of these meetings. And I tell everyone about time as the most precious and limited resource we have. We only have the same number of hours at work, the same number of hours per day, and we need to make sure that we extract value as much as we can from every minute that we spend there. And the saddest thing for me to hear is that meetings are a waste of time. It just makes me sad that people go to work every day and endure these soul-crushing, boring meetings, and they realize that they have to actually get their work done outside of work in order to keep up. I'm wondering if this resonates with you. So time is a coin of your life. It's the only coin you have, and only you can determine how it will be spent. And be careful, because other people will spend it for you, and this happens all the time. So I'm going to tell you the first step of what I did. So when I started my mission in the beginning of the year, I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to codify all the rules I know about what makes a good meeting, and I'm going to distribute these rules throughout the team, and everyone's going to read these rules and understand these rules, and magically everything's going to improve. And so the 5 rules that I selected were the following. So the first was about just for the organizer, just for the person who's stealing people's time and making sure that they are prepared. And so they need to have a clear purpose. I'm going to talk about more about that later. They need to give enough advance warning to the participants so that they actually can free time up in their calendars. They provide any information up front to the participants so that they can come to the meeting prepared. And I don't know about you, but have you ever walked into a meeting room where there's just stuff all over the whiteboard? There's coffee cups on the tables from the previous meeting, and it's just a mess. So one of the things is about kind of room hygiene, right? Keeping the room clean and ready for the next group that's going in there. The second rule is about what happens in the meeting. So I said stay on topic and on time. And so this is aimed at the people who like to hear themselves talk, the people who seem to want to bring all the history back and kind of rehash things over and over and over, and not people who actually don't help and propel the progress of the meeting forward. And I like to use this acronym ELMO. I got it from Lisette Sutherland, and it stands for Enough, Let's Move On. And so when I'm in a meeting and it seems like we're going in circles, what I do is I just say ELMO, and we know to stop and move on to the next topic. The third rule is about being very explicit about when we're making decisions in meetings or when we need to follow up with next steps. And so it's about closing decisions and identifying action items. The fourth rule is about respecting everyone who's attending the meeting, so it's for people to turn up on time and come prepared. Meetings are not a place for us to catch up on email or finish doing a code review or answer some messages in Slack. And what I noticed when I was starting this mission is that in general, our meetings would start about 10 minutes later than the appointed time because we were waiting for people to turn up. I don't know if this happens to you as well, but it's really valuable if you can actually start a 12 o'clock meeting at 12 o'clock. And finally, knowing how to end a meeting, right? So you end a meeting by summarizing what was discussed, summarizing what decisions were made, making sure, again, if there's alignment in the room on those decisions, and sending an email afterwards or capturing some kind of meeting protocol in a document that you can distribute and people can refer back to later. Okay, so those were the 5 rules. They're pretty straightforward. They're pretty common sense. They're not groundbreaking new concepts. And it didn't work, right? So my colleague Elena, she made this wonderful poster that you're looking at. I printed them all out. I stuck them in the meeting rooms, in the walls where everyone could see it, and really nothing changed. And so the next thing I tried was sharing this meeting bill of rights. And so I'm not going to read through all of these points, but the essence of the meeting rights was if you find that the rules aren't being followed, you have the right or the responsibility to just not attend the meeting, right? So we wanted to ensure that people were playing by the rules. And so I said, if not, exercise your rights and leave the meeting. That didn't work either. So putting up posters is a nice intention, but didn't really capture what I needed to change. So what did I do after that? I did workshops, and I designed two kinds of workshops. I designed a workshop for people who are the ones who organize meetings, and I organized a workshop for people who normally are the ones who get invited to meetings. And I rolled it out across the whole organization, and I think pretty much everyone who was there at the time attended. So before I get into the elements of what that workshop contained, I want to do another survey. So let me figure out if I can do it this time. Yeah. I'm not doing this well. I'm sorry, there it is. Okay, same code. So if you can just type in some of the reasons why you think your meetings are not effective, and let's see what we get. We're going to build a word cloud here. So I think each person gets 3 things that they can enter. What are the reasons why you think your meetings aren't effective? Let's see what we get. Yep. More chaos. Boring. Yep. Yep. All of this looks very familiar. We got a lot of chaos going on. Too many things to cover and too long. No agenda. Wrong people. Interesting. Bad connection. Okay. Yes to all of it. I had the same problem. Should I keep going, or are you guys done? Okay. So I'll go through now the elements of an effective meeting. You already covered the reasons why they're not effective, and I think these are the kind of the core things for me. The picture on the right is actually a flip from the workshop that I run. So for me, the main elements of an effective meeting are first to have a clear objective and purpose, right? Have a reason for being there. The reason for going to a meeting is not to keep a seat warm. Again, it's not to have a break before your next meeting or to answer emails or do code reviews. It has to have a clear objective and purpose. You need to know what's going on there. Again, you need to have an agenda. So what specifically are we going to do in this meeting to achieve our objective? Sounds pretty straightforward. So you want to know how this meeting is going to be run. Third, you need active participation. And hand in hand with active participation is making sure you have the right people in the room. And knowing you have the right people in the room, I'll get to that in a bit, but each person who goes to that meeting needs to know why they're there and what they're supposed to do there. Finally, fourth is facilitation. And facilitation, I was talking to Marcus right before this, and facilitation is this kind of art where you're not necessarily taking care of the content of the meeting, but you're taking care of the overall dynamics of the meeting and the energy in the meeting, right? So are we staying on topic? Do we have clarity about what we're talking about? Do we have alignment in the room about decisions that we're making? And are we still on track? Are we still following the agenda that we created in the beginning of the meeting? And finally, again, having a wrap up and next steps. These are all really straightforward elements, but it's surprising how much of the time we forget to do these basic things. So before we even get into that, though, we have to decide if we want to have a meeting. So I have this little decision tree that I ask people to go through when they think they want to organize a meeting. And so the first thing I ask someone who's about to send a meeting invite is, have I thought through the situation? And the reason why I'm asking this is that sometimes when we're struggling with a situation or a problem and we simply don't know what the next step to take is, to get rid of that anxious feeling, we say, okay, I'm going to call a meeting and I'm going to ask, 4 other people to get in a room with me and we'll brainstorm together and we'll figure it out together. And what I encourage people to do instead is just spend some time alone doing the research and sorting through all the information, maybe having one-on-ones with some key people, but really prepare yourself before you start stealing other people's time. If you've thought through the situation, then you get to go to the next step. So the next step is, do I need outside input to make progress? Are there specialists on the team that I need to talk to? Are there people who I know are in disagreement that I need to get aligned? Whatever it is. Or can I simply just proceed now that I've done my research and just do whatever it is I need to do? So if you do need outside input to make progress, you go to the next step. And the next step is, does it require real-time communication? So do people have to physically or virtually be in the same place at the same time in order for me to make progress? Or is there a way that I can deal with my problem or situation asynchronously? For instance, can I create a document and ask people to add comments to it and then give them a certain time period to add comments and then present a summary? Or do I actually need to pull everybody in the room together to hash this thing out? If you need real-time communication, then schedule a meeting. So even before, even if you do those 4 steps, I promise you probably some percentage of the meetings will disappear because people can do the work themselves and figure it out on their own without having to steal the time from other people. People often complain about, this is Zig Ziglar, I really like this guy a lot. People often complain about lack of time when lack of direction is a real problem. And in the word cloud, you guys were bringing that up, right? So the most important thing when you're organizing a meeting is to have a clear objective and purpose. And I like to ask people to begin with the end in mind, right? Think about by the end of this meeting, we will have decided this or discussed this or debated this, and we will have created some new shared knowledge in this meeting. But be intentional about that when you're organizing a meeting. What is it that you want to achieve in this time? Next is the agenda. So to make a good agenda, you don't actually have to think of all the topics yourself. You can get input from the participants. And you can poll them before the meeting and say, okay, this is the problem that I need to solve. What are some of the things that we need to make sure we cover off on? And have the participants contribute. And if the participants are contributing to that agenda, chances are they'll participate more as well because they'll care about the topic. And for each topic, be explicit about what its purpose is. So is it that I just want to share this knowledge with you? Is it I need to get input from each of you so that I can make a decision? Or is it that all of us together have to decide what we're going to do about this thing? And each of those different purposes has a different way of working itself out in the meeting. Next for the agenda is making sure you allocate enough time for each topic to give it its due course. So the formula that I have is you need some minutes to introduce the topic, then you need some more minutes to answer any questions, then you need some more minutes to resolve any different points of view, some more minutes to consider possible solutions, and finally some more minutes to agree to actions. And if you take that formula and multiply it by the number of people in the meeting, you can see how a topic that you optimistically think will only take 3 minutes ends up taking 20 minutes. Just keep that in mind when you're putting your agenda together. I think one of the main things in the word cloud was too long. So constrain what you're going to focus on in that meeting and make sure that each topic has the time it needs. Next is specify how attendees should prepare. So how many of you have been invited to a meeting with some, vague subject line and no agenda, first of all, and then you show up to the meeting and you realize that I'm going to be showing you this long document that I could have sent maybe a day or 2 days before that you could have read, and then we could have actually spent the meeting time talking about it. So please provide your participants with material so that they can prepare beforehand. Also with this, you can have those side conversations to prep them before the meeting. So you can say, hey, Sally, we're going to have this meeting about this. I really need to get your input about this particular thing. Can you maybe talk to your team before you come to the meeting so you can share their perspective to make the most, again, of the meeting? And finally, identify who's leading each topic. So you as an organizer don't always have to lead each topic, especially if people contributed different items for the agenda. They can lead the topic. Your job as organizers, making sure that you get to the conclusion that you want. So here's a sample agenda that I have for a weekly meeting that we have at Alpha. It's got the topic, it's got the presenter, and it's got the duration. Most of this meeting is information sharing, which is why the durations are quite short. Okay, the next element is active participation, and it's for each person in that room to ask themselves, why am I here? Right? Again, we're not here to warm the seat and to take a break. We're here to actually produce something of value and make some progress. So for participants, I asked them to run through the same decision tree as the organizer did. So they can ask the organizer, have you thought through this thing on your own already? What is it specifically that you need from me to contribute? How am I supposed to contribute? And if you can't get that from the organizer, then politely decline the meeting. I also asked for preparation. So if there are any pre-reads, if you need to talk to your team beforehand, make sure that happens before you get to the meeting. The next one, again, I'm thinking of Marcus here, I say it's listen more than speak. So, I'm sure we've encountered the people who like to hear themselves talk in meetings, and we've been in situations where maybe what was a group discussion turns into a dialogue between two people who just can't seem to get off their different sides of the fence. If you find yourself in that situation and you're one of the people's talking, I have another acronym that I really like. It's called WAIT, and it stands for Why Am I Talking? And so, before you open your mouth, think, what am I about to say? Am I about to support something, which is great, or am I about to push this discussion even further by offering a different option? But think before you speak. And finally, stay vigilant. And by this, I mean, notice if the meeting's going off track, if it's too long, if we seem to be going and talking in circles. Like, each one of us who attends a meeting is responsible for that. It's not just the organizer's responsibility, but it's every single attendee's responsibility, because your time is precious. So you want to get the most out of that meeting. So stay vigilant. Next is facilitation. So in meetings, I like to think that there's 4 different roles. There's the organizer, there's the person who organized the meeting at the first place, who has the situation or the problem that they want to solve, and they know where they want to get to, right? They have their objective and purpose. Then we have the facilitator. In most cases, you could have the facilitator and organizer be the same person, but if it's a big enough meeting, you might want to have a different facilitator. And that facilitator is really taking care of less than the content of what's being said in the meeting and more about how the meeting is flowing. So they're watching to make sure that we're staying, we're giving the right amount of time to topics, that we're staying on track. They're also noticing if there happen to be really quiet people in the meeting that they have a chance to speak as well. They're breaking up those like one-on-one dialogues and kind of bringing the group back into it. They're noticing if decisions have been made and calling them out explicitly. All those things are what a facilitator does. Third is the note taker. So it's just really helpful, again, if it's a especially contentious meeting or a big meeting, that you have someone who's just focused on taking notes. And the notes are for the follow-up at the end. What was said, what was decided, what are next steps, what's put in the parking lot. That's what the note taker does. And finally, the participant. That's vital. Otherwise, I would be having a meeting with myself. So I need the participants to take an active role in all the meetings. And then I have some powerful statements that facilitators can use. So if you think things are not getting clear, you could say, well, I feel like we're going in circles. Can someone help get clear on where we are with this and what we said so far? That's just a really simple way to kind of break the endless loops and get back on track. Well, the next one, get back on track. So it seems like we're talking about something different than we intended to. Do we want to continue with this, or do we want to go back to the original topic? And it's okay if the people in the meeting say, no, this is actually more important, let's keep going with this. But you need to be intentional about it. It's basically the facilitator is the navigator of the meeting. They're making sure everyone knows where they're going next and that they get to the destination of whatever that objective was by the end of the meeting. And finally, for alignment, the facilitator can say, it sounds like we made a decision, but it wasn't explicit enough. Can we just go around the room and make sure everyone is on board with this and hear if there are any differing opinions or concerns? So facilitation is super, super important to have in a meeting. And finally, we have the wrap up and next steps. So this is where the organizer comes in and says, did we achieve what we set out to achieve? Did we cover every single agenda item? Was every single topic covered? Was there anything in the parking lot that we need to go back to and have another meeting about maybe? Repeat any decisions that were made. This one's really important because you might have a meeting, made a decision, and then a day later forget about that decision, and maybe when you come to that meeting again, you have to make that decision all over again. I don't know if that happens to you. It's happened to me where I thought we made a decision and then we repeat the same decision again. Agree on next steps. So this is pretty straightforward. Actionable actions. This is who is going to do what by when. And at subsequent meetings, it's really important to follow up on those actions. And then the last one is all about staying in that spirit of continuous improvement. So you want to just like save 3 minutes at the end of your meeting to talk about how the meeting went, right? So did we achieve our objective? What went well? What didn't go well? What can we try next time to make this meeting even more productive? And this one was actually key for me in this whole mission of improving my meeting culture, because we actually did critically examine what was going on and changed a few things. So here are some results from, I think this is from a participant workshop that I did, and I usually send out Google Forms afterwards for my own improvement. And you can see, people are saying, noticing that our time is gold. All of a sudden it's like, yeah, I own my time and only I can decide whether to freely give it to someone or how I'm going to spend it. This was super important. And also the elements, that decision tree that you go through. I don't know, do you just accept every single meeting that you're invited to, or do you think about it before you click accept. Something to keep in mind. And for me, I'm really happy with the results. So where the red arrow is where I peaked at 94% responded favorably to we have effective meetings. That really made my day. But you can see we kind of recently went down again in numbers. So I think I need to do a little bit of a refresh. We have some new people who've come in. And, you know, like any habit, we need to constantly work at it and strengthen it and make sure we don't revert to our bad habits. But yeah, you know, I'm pretty happy to go from 24% favorable to 94% favorable. So to summarize, own your time. It's gold. And only you should be able to control it. Don't freely give it away. First, you need to decide if you want to have a meeting or attend a meeting. So go through that decision tree. Make sure that there's a clear purpose. Make sure that there's an agenda so you know what's going to happen in the meeting. Everybody in that room has a role, even the participants. Probably that's the most important role. And make sure you finish meetings with a proper closing and next steps. And that's it. So I'm happy to take any questions.